So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to tackle the while loop, if and switch conditions, right? So by the end of this video, you should know enough to actually start writing quite a few programs within this construct of this main function, right? We've not learned how to create functions yet, but you should know enough to actually write everything within this, and we'll actually go through some examples. So let's get started, right? Let's start with the if condition, right? So let's say you want to do, so what is the purpose of it? The logic is fairly simple, and it's there so that you can accomplish tasks that you would normally just state in English, right? So you would say, for example, let's say you had the age of some person stored in this variable, and let's say the age is 23, right? And now you want to actually execute a particular some code, some particular code based on the age of the person, right? So you could say if, and again, this actually will do some stuff for you. So it actually inserts the parentheses for you. So you can say if age is less than 20, right? Open this curly bracket, print out age below 20, right? Now, as you can imagine, sometimes, so let's try this out, right? This should actually print out nothing because the age is actually greater than 20, right? So in situations like this, you obviously, and just as you would converse with anybody in English or any other language, you might want to say, if something is true, do this. If something is not true, however, that therefore else, do something else, right? So you might say s out age greater than 20, right? So let's run this, and you should get stuff that says here age is now greater than 20. So now that we are learning these conditionals, you can see that the programs are actually almost sort of talking back to you now. They're sort of like giving you output, right, based on certain things that you do. So in this case, what I've done is I've used an if construct. This if construct actually takes a conditional, right? This value has to return a boolean, right? So you can use a lot of the conditional operators that you would think of in normal mathematics. So like, for example, less than, greater than, equal to. This equal to, be aware, is only for the fundamental data types, right? Later on we'll come to another thing that is the word equals and not equal to. But since we're talking about fundamental data types, we are fine with this. Equal to, not equal to, right? You could also say less than equal to or greater than equal to, right? So these are the different conditional operators that are available in Java, right? So you could say, for example, age not equal to 20, right? Print this out, but of course here you will get a thing which says basically age is not equal to 20 is true. So I could say here age instead of below 20, I could just change this message, not equal to 20, right? Otherwise this message could have been age is equal to 20, right? So if you compile it, now how do you make it so that if you notice here, the value in this block, that means in the if block, this statement actually got executed and not this statement, right? So how would you do that? If you just change the value of age to 20, now you see here age is equal to 20. So just with this simple construct, right, you can actually do so much. And actually you could go even further. So you could actually give more conditions here. So you can say else if age, sorry, I'll just format this, age is equal to 23, right? Which is what it was earlier, right? So if age is equal to 23, then say age is equal to 23, else sout don't know what to do, right? So if I run this, you'll see that it prints out actually, sorry, this, this is something that you should also be careful of. If you give a condition, so it printed out the wrong thing that I expected, and it's good that I made that mistake, so you can also learn from it, right? What's happening here is this condition here, when it says age not equal to 20, age is 23, right? So when Java hits this block of code, what it will do is it will check this first condition. Age is 23, you're comparing it to 20, right? So it's not equal to 23, right? Therefore, if it's not equal to 23, this block of code will be executed. And sorry, this block of code will be executed, right? Even though I sort of erroneously thought this block of code would be executed, but what happened was this condition matched first. So when you have many if, else if, and this can actually keep going down, you can have many else ifs. What will happen is the first condition that matches, that code block will get executed. Okay, so you have to be very careful about this, right? So if I change this to less than 20 and run it, now you get the second code block being executed, right? Because age less than 20 false, so it keeps going on. Then, and if it reaches the else condition, therefore it will just actually do whatever's in this block because it has nothing else to do, right? So this is an if statement. Okay, the next one we'll do is a while statement. So a while statement is fairly simple. While, let's say, so let's use another example here. So I'm going to say int equals, let's say 1, right? Int I forgot to give it a name, right? So I'm going to say while I is less than 10, print I, right? But in this case, if I run it, what will actually end up happening is this will keep running forever, right? Because I've not been able to increment this value of I. So every time you hit this loop, what this says in English is, it tells the while loop, I've given you I, check what the value is. So it'll check. I's value is 1. Then it will compare 1 less than 10. Is it true? Yes. 1 is definitely less than 10. Therefore, it will execute this statement here. But now there's a problem, right? I is never changed or incremented, which means that it's this. So when you get to the end of this code block, this while loop will again come to this condition and check I. I is again 1. 1 is less than 10, so it will keep executing this. So in fact, if I hit Shift F10, you'll see this will actually keep going forever. So actually it's going on and on. The scrolling bar keeps scrolling a lot. So I'm going to just stop this program here. Okay. And what you could do here is you could actually now increment the value of I. So you could say I plus plus, right? Now on every iteration of this loop, what's going to happen is it will check the value of I, increment it. So let's run this. And now it has run it from 1 to 9, right? Because 9 is less than 10. So what you've seen here is, because I've used this incremental operator, right? This incremental operator is nothing but a shortcut for I is equal to I plus 1, right? I could even write it like this and run it and you get the same result, right? Because what this statement is doing is it first goes to the right hand side, gets the value of I. I is initially 1, like you see in this pop-up. Then it takes 1 and adds it and becomes 2. So I is now become 2. So in the next iteration of the loop, I will be 2. Then it prints it out, then it increments it to 3, and so on and so forth. Okay. So like this, you can actually use an if statement, you can use for loops if you saw in the last video, or you can use while loops. Another loop which includes while, which is called a do while. Okay, so a do while loop will execute its statement the first time. Okay, so I'm going to say, actually, let's make this int j equals 0, right? So the do while statement is similar to while. The only difference is this statement will get executed no matter what the first time, right? So this means it will print out 0, then it will check the condition. 0 is less than 10, then it will go for another round, and it'll keep doing this till I increment. But again, you notice here I made a mistake. Apart from this variable, I made a mistake here where I'm not incrementing or doing anything to j. So I could say j equals j plus 2. This time I'm not incrementing by 1, I'm incrementing by 2, right? So let's try to run this code and see. So now if you notice, I get the value 0 printed out. This is from our last while loop, do while loop. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? So if you have to write a program which is basically just getting you the even numbers, right, you can actually do something like this, right? And you actually have an upper bound where it will not go on forever, because it will stop the moment j becomes less than 10, right? So in this case, you don't see the value 10 here, right? So it's not executing that value. So this is do while loop, okay? And the last construct is something known as switch, okay? So a switch is actually a sort of a possibly a simpler way in some conditions than doing an if else if kind of statement, right? But actually functionally it's kind of the same, right? So suppose I have, so actually let's do a different data character. There are 3 types of things you can give to a switch statement. One is an int, let me just comment this out, a char, or a string. You know about char and int, you don't know about string yet, right? So I won't use string, I'll just use int or char. So since we've been using ints all this time, we'll actually use char. C equals, let's say, e, right? Now I could say switch on this character and open my block. Now every switch statement has what is known as case arms, right? So you say case and you give the literal you want this to match. So if it's a, then you have colon and you say s out, it is a, right? Now you, just like the if else, you don't actually have to sort of end it there. You can say if b, right, s out, it is b, right? And of course we could go on and on, but one very important thing to remember about the switch statement, if you don't say the following thing, break, after Java executes this, the way Java reads this is, it looks at this variable, right? It gets the value of the variable, in this case it is e. Then it takes this e and compares it to every single case statement. If it finds the value in the case statements, you're fine. In this case, it won't find it. So actually, let's run this code and see what happens, right? So in this case, it didn't find it and nothing happened because there was nothing happening here at the end. If you wanted an else equivalent, right, this is done by default. So I can say s out, it is some char, right? So let's run this again and you should see it is some char gets printed, right? So here what you notice is it took e and compared it to both these case statements. It's very important that every case statement end with a break. If you don't end it with a break and I change this, so let's say I change this to a and I don't put the break here, you'll actually see both these statements printed out. It is a and it is b, right? So let's do this. You see that? So actually both these case statements got executed, right? So I actually don't want that to happen most of the time. So I'm going to say break. And this time let's actually put a case statement for E. Okay, and I'm going to say s out, it is E, and then of course the customary break. Okay, so I'm going to say change this to E. So now let's run this code and you'll say it is E, right? So how do you look at this and read this in Java? What's happening is this switch statement takes this variable, gets the value. Then it goes through every case statement that it has inside its block, right? If it doesn't find a value here and you have a default block, it will execute the statements in the default block. If, however, it does find it, then it will execute the statements here, right? And ignore everything else. And just to button this up, if you don't put the break statement, okay, then when your switch statement finds a value of B, let's say, and you don't put the break statement, it will execute the statements under the case B, but then it will go to the next case. So it's actually known as fall through. So it falls through, literally, like sort of if it were falling from the top of a building, it literally falls through and basically comes here and then will execute these statements like you'd seen earlier. Okay, so I think this should give you a good sense of loops and conditionals and arrays and sort of and fundamental types in Java. And now in the next video, we'll actually sort of build on this. So see you in the next one. Thank you.